They broke an 80-year-old girl's leg. What the hell's angels did next shocked the entire town. An 80-year-old girl screamed helplessly in the middle of a quiet street. She wasn't crying because she fell. She was crying because 3 teenage boys had just snapped her leg, and they laughed. But what happened when the Hells Angels found out? The entire town witnessed something they will never forget. Before the story begins, please subscribe to Bikers Hype and like this video to support real biker stories. Share it with your friends. If you love Hells Angels, prove your love and help us reach 1,000 subscribers. The quiet town of Redwood Falls had always been peaceful, a place where children played on sidewalks, old shopkeepers swept their porches, and neighbors waved to each other every morning. But everything changed one cold Friday evening. The sun had just dipped behind the hills, leaving long black shadows stretching across Maplewood Street. The streetlights flickered on one by one, illuminating dust floating in the still air. 80-year-old Maya Coleman's, shy, bright-eyed, was walking home from the small corner market, carrying a tiny brown paper bag. Inside was a chocolate bar she had saved up for all week. Her mother worked 2 jobs. Her father was gone. Maya didn't have much, but she had hope, and she had her chocolate. She walked with a soft smile until she heard footsteps behind her. 3 teenage boys, older, bigger, the kind of boys who carried cruelty like a badge. Maya recognized one of them, Brandon Pike, a 16-year-old known for trouble, vandalism, and for always being angry at something. "Hey, little mouse," Brandon sneered. "What are you hiding in the bag?" Maya froze. "It's just my chocolate." Her voice trembled, but she tried to sound brave. Brandon snatched the bag. His friends laughed. "Oh, that's cute. Look." She thought she could keep it. "Give it back," Maya whispered. Brandon's smirk twisted into something darker. "What if I don't?" He pushed her backward. Maya stumbled, fell on the cold pavement, her hands scraping against the rough concrete. Brandon crouched beside her. "You gonna cry?" "Huh." Maya swallowed hard. "Please." Brandon's friend nudged him. "Dude, let's go. Your dad's already pissed." But Brandon didn't move. Instead, he raised his foot. "Stop." Maya gasped. His shoe came down hard on her leg. Crack. Her scream ripped through the air like a knife, a sound that should never come from a child. She clutched her shin, sobbing, her entire body shaking. The boys froze for a moment, realizing what they'd done. Then panic kicked in. You broke her." "Shut up. Let's go." They ran, cowards, leaving an 80-year-old girl in the street with a broken leg, crying, alone. But Redwood Falls wasn't as empty as the teenagers thought, because 3 blocks away, inside a dimly lit bar called the Iron Stallion, a group of Hells Angels were having their usual Friday meetup, and one of them, a huge, intimidating, heavily tattooed biker named Reaper, heard the scream. He froze. He lifted his head. His brothers noticed immediately. "Reaper, you good?" asked Tank, the tallest of the crew. Reaper's face tightened. "That wasn't a normal scream," he said quietly. "That was a kid." The Angels didn't hesitate. They never did when it came to protecting the vulnerable. In less than 5 seconds, the entire bar emptied. Boots hit the pavement. Engines roared to life, and the night was about to change. Reaper arrived first. He cut the engine and jumped off his bike before it even fully stopped. The sight in front of him turned his stomach. A tiny girl curled on the ground, crying, her leg bent unnaturally. "Hey." Reaper knelt beside her. "You're okay?" "I'm right here." Maya looked up. Her vision blurry, her world spinning. But she saw something unusual. A huge biker, with the gentlest eyes she had ever seen. "It hurts," she sobbed. Reaper's heart cracked like the bone in her leg. "I know, sweetheart. You're safe now. Nobody's gonna hurt you again. I promise." Tank arrived next, followed by Ghost and Diesel. "Holy hell," Diesel whispered. "She's just a baby." Tank clenched his jaw. "Who did this?" Maya tried to speak, but a wave of pain struck her. Reaper squeezed her hand gently. "Easy, little one. We'll get you help first." He scooped her into his arms, as carefully as a father holding a newborn. Her head rested against his leather jacket. "It's okay," Reaper whispered. "We got you." The Angels didn't wait for an ambulance. They were the ambulance. They were the law. They were the justice. "Coming." Ghost revved his bike. "We're taking her to Redwood Medical." Reaper nodded. "And then we're finding out who did this." The others exchanged glances. They already knew what that meant. Reaper rode with one hand on the throttle and the other wrapped firmly around little Maya, keeping her steady against his chest. The cold wind whipped at his jacket, but he shielded her small body completely. She was trembling, teeth clenched, trying not to scream again with every vibration of the bike. "Hang on, sweetheart. We're almost there," Reaper whispered near her ear. Tank and Ghost flanked him on both sides, engines like thunder, forming a protective formation. Diesel rode ahead, clearing the road, forcing cars to stop with a single glare. People stared as they passed. Hell's Angels riding fast through town with a child in a biker's arms. Nobody understood what happened yet, but they were about to. Reaper slid his bike to a stop directly at the ER entrance. Nurses rushed out instantly, startled by the sudden arrival of 4 leather-wearing giants. "She's hurt," Reaper barked, voice louder than he intended. "She's got a broken leg, and she's in shock." Nurses gently lifted Maya onto a stretcher. Her tiny hand clung to Reaper's sleeve. "Don't leave," she whimpered. Reaper swallowed hard, his throat tightening. "I'm not going anywhere, Angel. I'll be right here." Tank placed a heavy hand on Reaper's shoulder. "You stay. We'll figure out who did this." Reaper nodded without looking away from the girl. Inside the hospital, a storm brewing. The doctor gave a grim assessment. "The leg is fractured in 2 places. This wasn't an accident. Someone stomped on it." Reaper's jaw twitched, his fists clenched until his knuckles turned white. "Who would hurt a kid like that?" The doctor muttered. "We're going to find out," Tank said, voice low and burning. Outside the room, Ghost had already started asking around. A couple had witnessed something from their porch. "We saw 3 teenage boys running down the street," an older man said. "One of them yelled, 'She shouldn't have gotten in our way.'" Ghost exchanged a look with Diesel. They knew exactly what that meant. Brandon Pike, a troublemaker, a bully, and worst of all, the sheriff's son. Diesel cursed under his breath. "That little bastard. And his daddy thinks we're the criminals." Tank cracked his knuckles. "We're paying them a visit." Back in the hospital room, a heartbreaking revelation. Maya lay in bed, her leg wrapped, her face pale. Reaper sat beside her, an unmovable statue protecting her. She looked so fragile, like one wrong breath could break her again. "Can you tell me what happened, Angel?" Reaper asked softly. Maya hesitated. Her lips trembled. "It was Brandon," she whispered. Her voice cracked. "He took my chocolate, and when I said please, he got mad. He stepped on my leg." Her tears returned, but she wiped them quickly, terrified of being weak. Reaper felt his heart drop, then turn into pure iron. "You didn't deserve that," he said, voice deep but gentle. "And I promise you, Maya, he'll never touch you again." She blinked up at him. "You promise?" Reaper leaned in closer. "I don't break promises." Tank, Ghost, and Diesel stepped into the room. "We found who did it," Ghost said. Reaper stood up slowly. "Brandon Pike." Reaper didn't need confirmation. He already knew. Tank nodded. "We going?" Reaper looked at Maya, small, hurting, scared, reaching for him. He placed his big hand over her tiny one. "I'll be back, Angel," he said softly. "And when I return, you'll be safe." She nodded weakly. "Okay." Reaper turned to the others. "Let's ride." And just like that, for Hell's Angels marched out of the hospital with murder in their eyes. The Pike residence. Fear meets fury. Brandon Pike lived in a fancy 2-story house with a white fence and a big lawn, perfect for a sheriff's family. But tonight, the rumble of 4 Harley engines shook the entire street. Lights turned on in houses, curtains were pulled aside. The Angels dismounted. Reaper didn't knock. He hammered the door with his fist. The sheriff himself opened it. Sheriff Pike, broad shoulders, white mustache, smug expression. That smugness vanished the second he saw who was standing there. "What the hell do you want?" Reaper stepped forward, so close that the sheriff had to back up. "Where's your son?" Reaper growled. The sheriff blinked. "Excuse me." Tank shoved a photo into his chest, a picture Diesel took at the hospital of Maya's broken leg. Sheriff Pike's face went pale. "You listen to me," Reaper said. "A little girl is in the hospital because your boy decided he owns the town. That's a serious accusation," Sheriff Pike snapped. Reaper slammed his hand into the wall behind the sheriff's head, cracking the wood. "It's not an accusation. It's a fact." The sheriff tried to regain control. "My son is 16. He's a kid. He wouldn't." "Brandon, get down here." Ghost roared so loud the windows shook. Footsteps echoed upstairs. Brandon appeared at the top of the stairs, cocky, sneering, until he saw the biker's. His face drained of color. Reaper stepped forward. You broke a kid's leg. Brandon swallowed hard. It was an accident. Tank cut him off. She told us. You stomped on her. Brandon's father grabbed his arm. Don't say anything, son. Reaper's voice became deadly quiet. You're coming with us. The sheriff stepped in front of Brandon. You're not taking my boy anywhere. Ghost grinned. Oh, we're not asking. The tension inside the Pike household was thick enough to choke on. Sheriff Pike stood rigid, trying to shield Brandon with his body, sweat forming at his temples. Brandon kept shrinking behind him like a terrified animal. Reaper took one slow step forward. You hurt an 8-year-old girl, Reaper said, voice low, controlled, deadly, and now you're going to face the consequences. Sheriff Pike raised his hand, palm outward. You take one more step, and I'll arrest all of you. Ghost chuckled darkly. You think we're afraid of your handcuffs, old man? But Reaper wasn't laughing. He leaned slightly forward, eyes burning. You should be more worried about your son than about arresting us. Brandon's lower lip trembled. Tank's patience snapped. That little girl is crying in a hospital bed right now. Tank spat. Her mother's not even there yet because she's working a night shift to feed her, and your spoilt brat thought it was fun to stomp on her. For what? A chocolate bar. Brandon tried to speak, but nothing came out. Reaper's voice softened, not gentle, but dark and cold. Did she beg you to stop? Brandon nodded once, barely visible. Ghost cursed under his breath. Coward. Sheriff Pike puffed up again, voice shaking but louder now. My son made a mistake, Reaper snapped. A mistake is dropping your phone. A mistake is forgetting your homework. Breaking a little girl's leg is not a damn mistake. The sheriff opened his mouth to retaliate, but Diesel slammed a fist into the doorframe, splintering the wood. You think being the sheriff means you can cover this up? Diesel growled. Not this time. Sheriff Pike's face turned red. You will not take him anywhere. Reaper exhaled slowly. We don't want him. The sheriff blinked. What? Reaper's eyes locked onto Brandon. We want him to go see what he did. Brandon's eyes widened in horror. No way. Tank's hand shot out like lightning, grabbing a fistful of Brandon's hoodie. Get your shoes, kid. You're coming. Sheriff Pike lunged. Ghost intercepted him faster than a striking snake. Back off. The sheriff froze when he saw the look in Ghost's eyes. Not rage, not fury, something worse. Purpose. You can't kidnap him, Sheriff Pike said through his teeth. Reaper shook his head. We're not kidnapping him. We're educating him. Ghost looked Brandon dead in the eye. You're going to stand in front of that girl. You're going to see the cast on her leg. You're going to hear her cry. And then maybe, just maybe, you'll understand what you did. Brandon shook violently. Please don't take me there. Please. Tank dragged him forward. You weren't begging for mercy when she begged, were you? Sheriff Pike grabbed Reaper's arm desperately. She's just a kid. Leave my boy alone. Reaper looked straight into the sheriff's soul. She's also a kid. The only difference is, she didn't have anyone to protect her, until now. The ride to the hospital, panic versus Iron Will. Brandon sat squeezed between Tank and Ghost in the back of the Angels' black van they used for long rides. His legs bounced uncontrollably. His hands shook so hard he sat on them to hide it. The bikers said nothing. Only the engine hummed. Ghost stared at him through the mirror. You know why you're scared? He asked suddenly. Brandon looked up, eyes watery. Because for the first time in your life, you're facing someone who isn't afraid of your dad. Brandon swallowed. They're going to kill me, he thought. But no, the Angels didn't kill kids. They did something far more terrifying. They taught them lessons they would never forget. At the hospital, a mother's heartbreak when they arrived. Maya had finally fallen asleep after hours of crying. Her face was still wet with dried tears. Her tiny hand clutched the stuffed bunny a nurse gave her. Her mother, Emily Coleman, burst through the hospital doors breathless, wearing her grocery store uniform. What happened? Where is she? Maya, baby. Reaper stepped forward, voice gentle again. She's inside, ma'am. She's safe now. Emily covered her mouth with shaking hands when she saw her daughter's cast. Oh my God. Maya, my baby. Reaper felt a lump rise in his throat. He turned his head away so she wouldn't see. Emily looked at him, tears mixing with anger. Who did this? Who hurt my child? Reaper stepped aside. Brandon stood behind him, trembling violently. Emily gasped. That's him. That's the boy. Brandon's eyes fell to the floor. I didn't mean to. I swear. Emily stepped closer, shaking with grief and fury. Didn't mean to. She pointed at Maya. She begged you to stop. Reaper placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Emily, there's something she needs to hear. Maya, half awake, whimpered softly. Mom. Emily rushed to her side. I'm here, baby. I'm right here. Maya slowly opened her eyes. When she saw Reaper, she smiled weakly. You came back, she breathed. Reaper knelt. Always, Angel. Brandon couldn't look away. He stared at the small girl in the hospital bed. The girl whose leg he broke. The girl who was now afraid to move because of him. His lip trembled. I'm sorry, he whispered. Tang crossed his arms. Louder. Brandon swallowed. I'm sorry, he said shakily, voice cracking. Emily glared at him. That won't fix her leg. Brandon cried openly now, guilt hitting him like a truck. Reaper watched him carefully, not with forgiveness, but with judgment. Do you understand what you did? Reaper asked. Brandon nodded repeatedly. I didn't know her leg would break. Reaper's voice grew colder. That's the problem. You don't think, and you don't care. Not until you're standing in front of your victim. Brandon wiped his tears with his sleeve. I'm sorry, Maya. I'm so sorry. Maya didn't answer. She just stared at him with big, hurt eyes. Not angry, not hateful, just betrayed. That look alone shattered Brandon more than any punch ever could. Tank whispered to Ghost. He needed this. Ghost nodded. He's starting to understand. Reaper straightened up. We're not done yet. Brandon looked at him, terrified. What else? Reaper's jaw tightened. You're going to tell the truth. Brandon blinked. To who? Reaper's eyes grew darker. To the entire damn town. The hospital parking lot buzzed with tension as the Hells Angels stood guard. Word had spread through Redwood Falls like wildfire. A biker saved a little girl. A sheriff's son broke her leg. The Angels are demanding justice. People gathered. Neighbors, store owners, mothers, teenagers, half. The town showed up angry, curious, scared, hopeful. Emily stood beside Reaper, holding her daughter's stuffed bunny in trembling hands. Maya slept inside the hospital, unaware of the storm rising outside. Brandon stood next to Tank, shaking uncontrollably. Tonight, he wasn't the sheriff's son. He wasn't the bully. He was the boy who hurt an innocent girl, and the town was waiting to hear the truth. Sheriff Pike arrives, and the town turns against him. 2 sheriff cars screeched into the parking lot. Sheriff Pike jumped out first, red-faced with rage, followed by 2 deputies. Step away from my son, he shouted, hand hovering near his gun. Ghost raised a hand casually. Don't do something stupid. You're outnumbered. Sheriff Pike scanned the crowd for support, but what he saw made his stomach twist. People weren't on his side. They were glaring at him. Mothers clutched their children. Men folded their arms angrily. Teens whispered loudly, your kid broke her leg. You will always protect him. You covered up worse before. Sheriff Pike's face went pale. Reaper stepped forward. You want your son, he said calmly. Earn him. How? The sheriff spat. Reaper pointed at the crowd. Let him tell the truth. Sheriff Pike stiffened. No, he's a minor. He's not saying anything. Reaper raised a brow. Maya is also a minor, and she didn't get that protection. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Emily stepped forward, eyes blazing. Sheriff, if you hide what he did, then you're just as guilty. Pike's mouth opened, but no words came. He looked broken for the first time. Brandon speaks, and the town learns everything. Reaper walked Brandon to the hood of a parked car, elevating him so the crowd could see him clearly. Tank whispered, tell the truth, all of it. Brandon gulped. Faces stared at him from every direction, judgmental, disappointed, furious. His voice cracked. I broke Maya's leg. Gasps scattered through the crowd. I stole her chocolate. Brandon continued, wiping tears. She asked for it back, and I got mad. I pushed her, and I stomped on her leg. Emily covered her mouth. Brandon sobbed openly. She screamed so loud, and I ran. I didn't help her. I didn't care. I just left her there. The silence that followed was suffocating. Reaper watched the sheriff's face crumble. This wasn't just about tonight. This was about years of enabling him. Brandon continued. I hurt her, and I'm sorry. I really am. I never meant to break her, but I did, and I deserve whatever happens. Tank whispered. Good. Ghost folded his arms. He needed to say that. Reaper nodded, but they weren't finished. The sheriff's corruption is exposed just when the crowd began murmuring again. Emily stepped forward. There's more, she said, voice steady. Everyone turned toward her. Emily lifted her phone. My daughter wasn't the only one he bullied. She told me he's scared other kids for months, and I found 3 parents who said the sheriff shut down their complaints. The crowd erupted. What? He covered it up. He protects his son instead of our kids. Sheriff Pike looked like he'd been struck. That's not true. He shouted. I was just trying to give him another chance. Reaper's voice boomed. You gave him another chance. But who gave Maya a chance? Who protected her? Sheriff Pike stuttered. Reaper stepped closer. That little girl wouldn't be in a hospital if he'd held your son accountable the first time. People nodded, murmured, agreed. Emily's tears turned to steel. You failed us, Sheriff. Pike lowered his head, finally defeated. He looked at Brandon, then at the crowd, and he whispered, I'm sorry, but it was too late. Biker justice without breaking the law. The deputies stepped forward. One of them, Officer Barnes, spoke. Sheriff, I'm sorry, but you're under investigation. Barnes turned to Reaper. You did the right thing, bringing the boy here and not taking matters into your own hands. We'll handle it now. Reaper nodded once. He didn't want revenge. He wanted justice. Brandon stepped toward the officers. I'll go, he said softly, but Reaper placed a hand on his shoulder. First, you do one more thing. Brandon looked confused. What? Reaper pointed to Maya's hospital window, where she lay sleeping. Every day she's in that bed. You'll volunteer at the hospital. You'll sit in that pediatric ward and help every kid in pain. You'll learn how fragile people are. Brandon swallowed hard. I will, I promise. Ghost smirked. And if you ever bully another kid, Tank finished the sentence. We'll be back. The crowd cheered softly, not loudly, not wildly, but approvingly, because tonight, something rare happened. Justice without violence, strength without cruelty, honor without fear. The emotional ending, the biker and the little girl after the deputies took Brandon away. The crowd slowly dispersed. Emily approached Reaper. I don't know how to thank you. Reaper shook his head. You don't need to. She looked up at him. You saved my daughter. Reaper stared at the hospital window illuminated by warm light. She saved me, he whispered. Emily blinked. What do you mean? Reaper cleared his throat. I've seen a lot of darkness, but that little girl, she reminded me there's still something worth protecting. Tears welled in Emily's eyes. Would you like to see her? She's awake now. Reaper hesitated. He wasn't used to being invited into the light, but he nodded. They walked to Maya's room. She looked up when the door opened. Her face lit up. You came back, Reaper. Reaper smiled softly, a rare expression on a man like him. I told you I would. Angel. Maya held out her arms. And Reaper, the intimidating, battle-scarred biker, gently hugged the fragile child. Emily wiped her tears. Tank, Ghost, and Diesel watched from the door. Ghost whispered, Man, this town will never forget tonight. Tank nodded. Neither will we. Thank you for watching this emotional story. If this touched your heart, make sure to subscribe to our channel Bikers Hype and like this video. Share it with your friends and help us reach our goal of 1,000 subscribers. Comment your name below and we might use your name in our next Hell's Angel story.